I'm Alberto Ferrari, coming from Italy. I work with Marco Russo with SQLDay. We build data warehouses, we do consultancy, we do training, we write books, we do assessments of complex projects. We are MVP, MCP, and a lot of M-something titles. Basically, we love business intelligence. We like business intelligence, and we study that with the Microsoft BI stack. Let's go back to the title. Today, I'm going to speak about Power BI. I have way more slides than I will ever be able to cover in 1 hour, because Power BI is pretty a complex ecosystem. The good part about Power BI is that it's not totally new. There is something new, there is something coming from the past, and so I will deliberately choose what to speak about, trying to focus on what I think are the most important things about Power BI. So I'm not going to show you the wow demos that you normally see on webcast or coming from Microsoft. If you ever have seen a demo of AmirNets, you know what I mean. They show beautiful demos that are absolutely astounding, but totally useless in the real world. And so I wanted to focus on Power BI, showing you something that I think is useful. How many of you have an idea of what Power BI is, or have no idea? So I see less. Okay, so you already know what Power BI is. So why you're here? Just for me. That's beautiful, thanks. No, Power BI is a set of tools which target... Why do they run this way when the projector is there? No idea. Well, Power BI is a set of tools which target the self-service BI people. Self-service BI is the new trend of business intelligence. The idea of self-service BI is we as BI professionals, we hate to build reports, so we let users build by themselves, and we do something else, like drinking coffee, going to a way, or doing something which is better. And so we build a lot of tools to let users build things by themselves. And we need to make them cool so that users say, wow, I created a beautiful report. We have Power Map, Power View, Power Pivot, Power View again. There are a set of tools which all starts with the Power name. PowerPoint is not part of them. It's the only Power which is not part of Power BI. And Power BI is an extension of Office 365. You might know, or you should already know, that you can buy Office from Microsoft, or you can buy a subscription to Office 365. Office 365 is nothing but Office with a different licensing pattern. You pay each month instead of buying the product. And you have, in exchange, not only Office on your PC, but even Office on the cloud. So you have SharePoint online, and you have the capability of sharing things with your colleagues, your friends, or other people. This was Office 365, and it was very cheap. Then they came out with the real thing from their point of view, from the money point of view, which is Power BI. Power BI is an extension of Office 365. You need to pay 4 times the price of Office, so it's quite expensive. But you have a lot of things more that are all targeted to self-service BI. You have Power Query, Power Pivot, Power Map, Power View, Power BI Sites, the Data Management Gateway, the Power BI app, which I cannot demo, and Q&A, natural language queries. Power Query is, in my personal opinion, the most important thing you need to focus on, because it's incredibly powerful. It works very, very well for self-service BI today, but in the future you can expect Power Query to extend in corporate BI, in ETL tools, in different scenarios where it will be really useful. Power Pivot, I'm not going to show you a lot of things about Power Pivot because it's not a node product, but you should already know what Power Pivot is. It's the analysis services engine inside Excel that you can use to write beautiful reports. Power Map is absolutely beautiful and totally useless, meaning that you can really create beautiful reports, and we will see some examples with Power Map, but then in the real world, by real users, I still have to find a single customer who really needs Power Map. So it's just a wow demo that I will do very quickly. Power View is like Power Pivot. I will show some reports with Power View, but I will not spend much time there because it's an old product. It's already on the market since a lot of time. There is a lot of demos on the web, and they are, by the way, better than I can do. Power BI Sites is useful. Power BI Sites shows some of the new features in Power BI. Power BI Sites are nothing but SharePoint Online on steroids. It contains more features, it lets you open new, create larger data models, and it contains the Q&A, natural language query, which again is, how many of you know what Q&A is? Just a few. Q&A is really cool as an idea. I still fight with Q&A. Q&A is the idea that the user connects to Power BI, asks a question in English, and gets as a result a report, a perfectly formatted report that contains all the data that he wanted. And it works. It really works. With demo, it works perfectly. In the real world, it's slightly harder, and most important, it works in English right now. So in Europe, we can try to sell it, but what I find difficult is expressing in English my requests, because I don't know English, it's not my language. I would write in Italian, but if I try to do that in English, it always gives me strange results. Data Management Gateway is pretty cool because it lets you connect the cloud with on-prem. You have servers on-prem, and you can refresh workbooks which are on the cloud with the server which is in your house by using the Data Management Gateway, which sits in the middle between Power BI and your server. So we start with Power Query. I will show a lot of Power Query, then jump back and forth through the slides. So do not expect a clear path, because I want to jump and look at different content. Let's start understanding what how many of you have already seen Power Query? Some, not much. Power Query is a free add-in. You download it from the web, just write Power Query Excel, you go to a Microsoft website, download the add-in. It works for both Excel 2010 and Excel 2013. Same add-in, same code, same everything, same feature, it simply works. And it has two features which are well known, data discovery and data transformation, and then a hidden feature which is the most interesting one for BI professional, which is the M language. What is the idea of Power Query? With Power Pivot, we brought pivot tables and data modeling to users. So they are able to create their pivot table and their data model and write their own DAX expressions. But what users kept asking is, hey, but I need to shape my data. I need to do some kind of ETL. I need to integrate sources of data and not only load the information, but even modify its content. And we know what modifying the content of data means. It's ETL, extract, transform, and load. What we were used to do with SSIS, integration services, but we cannot give integration services to users. That's too complex. It's all full of technical stuff. So what they try to do is create a tool which is easy for users. What you see is what you get. So it's very simple for users. But because they are geek, they said, we just don't create a simple ETL. We enrich it with a language, the M language, which is incredibly powerful, up to a point that, believe me, I really wanted to have Power Query instead of integration services, because the M language is really powerful and much easier to use. Instead of looking at slides, let's take a look at what Power Query is. You open Excel, you install, I already did it, Power Query, and you get a new tab in the ribbon, Power Query. that contains a lot of beautiful and colored buttons. Basically, the buttons are online search, so you can search for data online, wherever it is, or from web, from file, from database. You have connectors for different databases, or you have connector for SharePoint, from OData, from the marketplace, from Hadoop, from Windows Azure, from Active Directory, and because it's user, even from Facebook. Have you ever dreamt about creating a pivot table with all your Facebook friends? You are saying yes? Go away. I don't want.
I've done spreadsheet with links I've posted. Really useful.
Really? I never used it. Maybe I have fewer friends, so that's the only.
Just to collect links and things I've posted.
Okay.
Search history.
So all these are the sources you can use, or from an Excel table, or from different sources. And how does it work? Let's try it. Let's start with the database, for example. You go from database, from SQL Server, of course, it's a SQL conference. We give the server name. I don't want to put the database name right now. Remember, this is user stuff, so there should be nothing complicated. If it is complicated, then the user will go away. So we just say, this is my server, okay. At this point, Power Query is connecting to the server and showing me the server with all the databases which are in the server. And guess what? We go for AdventureWorks. On AdventureWorks, I have tables, I have views, I have a lot of things, but I'm interested in products. So I click on products, right-click and say, okay, let's start querying the product table. The first result you get is a preview of the product table that contains all the columns of the product table. I have many buttons in the query editor of Power Query, product key, product alternate key, and then I start to say, hey, but I don't want all these columns, so I delete them, right-click, I never find delete, remove, okay? Then I don't speak Spanish, sorry?
First option, still click.
Yes, I don't speak Spanish, neither French, neither I want all this stuff, so we remove it. And then let's delete something else so it will be shorter to use. You can even hit cancel and it deletes the columns. Then we don't speak neither Chinese nor Turkish, and we are not interested in slowly changing dimension. We are user. We do not even know what slowly changing dimension is. And photos. Who wants photo? Okay, safety stock level is gone. So right now I'm just reducing columns. I want to highlight immediately that here appears applied steps. Source, and then there is an operation removed columns, because by deleting columns I'm removing columns. So this is the first step I'm doing in my transformation. Then let's remove finish good flag. They always go in the same. French description. We don't like French. So then after all the columns, there's something strange. There appear fact tables. Fact internet sales, fact the product subcategory, product inventory, factory sellers table. These are tables. Why are tables there? And how can you think about using a table? I'm just doing ETL. What Power Query did was following the chain of relationships starting from the product, and each related table to the product appears as a table. Of course, we don't want all the tables, so we remove these tables, we don't want them. But the product subcategory might be useful because it contains a link to the product subcategory and then the link to the product category. So we click on this magic button that expands the columns of the product subcategory. These are the columns of the product subcategory, and it contains the full table, the product category, because from product subcategory you go to product category to create the full chain of relationships. I don't want all the columns of the product subcategory, but I want the name, so we unselect everything. I want the name, and I want the product category, because I will get from the product category the product name. When I click on OK, you see that now I have a column, dim product subcategory, English product subcategory, that contains the product subcategory name. And then I have the full table dim products. Let me rename this column as subcategory. And I need to expand dim product category, remove everything, and only keep English product category name. And then I rename it as category. Now I have product key, alternate key, English product name, color, model name, English description, subcategory, category, and my product table looks fine. You see that in the steps here, I have several steps, each of which goes from the beginning to the end. One of the beautiful parts of Power Query is that you can go back in steps. For example, you can click on renamed columns or expand, and it is undoing what we did. So instead of going only in one direction, it lets you undo all the operation and say, hey, but what was the look of the original table? Then what happened when I removed the column? When I expanded in product subcategory, I renamed the column, and then I expanded in product subcategory, and then I did another rename. So it's very easy, if you do something wrong, to delete the last operation, and it goes back one step, and you move it. Or if you need to insert or to change the behavior, you simply go to the point where you did the operation, you change it, and all the flow is kept consistent. Then you do apply and close. Oh, I did it too early. Let me edit again. Before doing apply and close, look at these two checkboxes, load to worksheet and load to data model. The source of the data can be loaded as an Excel table, so it will show as an Excel table, or can be loaded inside the Power Pivot data model, directly inside Power Pivot. And I can decide to load it to the worksheet, to the data model, do both, or neither. Neither, of course, is totally useless, but usually you will not load data to the worksheet, you will only load them in the data model. So you don't have to store information in your worksheet, it will be completely inside the data model, and because it's compressed, and it works way better. So for example, we remove load to worksheet, and we just load it to the data model. And now, dim product is being loaded. In Excel, I don't have it. It's being removed from Excel. And if I go to Power Pivot, go to Manage, I will find my dim product table here that contains all the products in my company or whatever. Okay? If you later you want to modify, you simply go to Edit, and you can change the behavior of your Etl steps. Now, you not only have feature to play with columns, you have many more features. You can remove the top rows, remove some columns, remove alternate rows if you are having a report that contains alternate rows that need to be removed. You can do many simple operations. You can change the data type to a number. So you can change the data type of each column to whatever you want. And you can also insert columns. Inserting columns, which we are not going to do, is creates a new column in the flow where you write the M expression that computes that column. So you can do some sort of ETL. You can also do group by. You can remove. You can do group by a column, for example. You can group by English product name, group by English product name, and you can add rows which are the number of rows or the sum of another column, and so on. So you can perform simple operation with a user interface. It's not something that you need to write or you need to learn. It's in the hand of users, and it's just a matter of trial and play with it. Now, this is just to give you a first idea of what Power Pivot is. Now, Power Query is. We have seen connectors. So you connect to a database. In this case, we connect it to SQL Server, but you can use different connectors to different objects. Then you have transformations that you can write using the user interface. So by using the user interface, you modify the content. There are two features which are very useful and important, which are the M language and the sharing of queries and functions. The connectors, we have already seen them. There are many, many of them. Just try them, and it's easy. You play with them, and you connect to data model. Then you have operations that you can do. You can merge tables using a left or an outer or an inner join. If you have two tables, you can merge them. For example, in my example, I have dim product. I simply apply and close. Then I can have a new table that I need to load again from Power Query. Where is it? From database. Let's go again with demo. And from the AdventureWorks data warehouse, for example, we take the fact dim product category just to have the dim product category table. We apply and close. And now we have dim product, which is a table, dim product category, which is another table. And you can go in Power Query, for example, and merge two tables. And you say, I want to merge a dim product with dim product category. And you need to choose the column that need to be used. For example, you have the category here and the English product category name, and it will match the rows from category and English product category name. You click on OK, and you generate a new table that contains the join of the two tables. It's important to note that the source is a Power Query table. It's not another table. So it can be an Excel table, it can be a flat file, it can be your Facebook list, it can be whatever. You start with a Power Query, and then you make a join between two tables which are coming from totally different databases and data models. Okay? It's very powerful. You can use it to join or to do a union between tables. That's one of the most frequent requests on blogs. I have two tables, and I want to do the union all and use it inside Power Pivot. It was not possible before. It is now very easy and simple to do by using Power Query. So let me see. Yeah, we can look very quickly just at the slides of this part. You can combine tables using merge, using the append function. You can filter data, remove the duplicates, remove the first row, remove whatever. You can do sorting. If you want your final data set to be sorted, you can do that. It's not useful for Power Pivot. It might be useful if it is an Excel table that then need to be used for some reason. And then you can transform using typecast. You can split a column into two. You can unpivot. You can do many different operations. Of course, there is no time to do a demo of all the operations, but gives an idea of all the features which are in Power Query. And you can create columns using the insert operation. Then there is the advanced editor. Instead of showing you the advanced editor immediately, I want to show you something I would say more useful. Maybe it's not more useful, but it's just more real world. This is an example that I built for a friend of mine that wanted to do, he plays with stock analysis, trading online, buy stocks and sell stocks and do this kind of operation. And he wanted to get information about, am I gaining money or not? I mean, she probably should already know that, but having good numbers is always useful to get confidence in things. And this is the file that he has available. There are some strings in Italian, but of course we are not interested in strings. This is a report coming from a web page that contains headers, then column title. This is a CSV file, then a lot of numbers shaped in some way. But if it was that easy, that wouldn't be a big problem. Then, near the end, Because this is a report, then we have totals among the many rows, then some blank rows, and finally we have another report inside the previous one, because it was useful in that page to show all the data. And of course, he has a lot of these files, one for each month where he does the operation. And he asked me, can I grab all this information, put them in Power Pivot, and then try to get some numbers and compute some values? Looking at the numbers, it didn't look easy. You say, oh, I need to write some code in order to get rid of the lines. But I decided to give Power Query a try. So if you start with an empty workbook, I will show you the beginning, and then we will see the final workbook, because there is no point in showing you each step of loading this file. With Power Query, you can start from a file, from text, and then you need to go in the right folder. You always forget about it. Poland 2014, Power BI, Power Query. Show me everything. This is the file I want to open. Okay. This is not what I wanted. Remove this. I always forget that step. So from file, from CSV, sample text file. It always does an operation that I want to remove. Okay, it's just file contents. I hate that part. I want only the file content, please. No, it always adds something. That's fine. So instead of doing that, we open the final workbook, and we see the step one by one, because I don't remember what's the first step. Workbook transaction. This was the original file. Okay. We start with this. This is a file containing all the rows, and near the bottom you see we have all the funny rows which should not be in the right place. Then I started playing with it. I removed the first row because the first row contained only header. Then I split by column delimiter because after I remove the first row I can split by the semicolon and start to look at something which is useful. Then I started to change the data type and say at this point, once I did the split, now these are the column header. So use the first row as a header. Then filter the rows because, for example, this row contains a blank value, so if you want to remove them, you right-click and say, I want only the row that do not contain this value. And it will filter out the rows. Filter the rows, remove column, split column, change data type. All these steps, I'm doing it quicker because I don't want to spend too much time there. Go to a final shape, which is exactly what I wanted. I started from a flat file that was totally wrong, and I started removing rows, changing data types, playing with it. And this is the kind of job you do in, let's say, 1 hour of work, from when you start up to the point where you have some data which is fine. And he was already happy, because now we had all the files. At the beginning, the source is really a folder, so I'm reading from a folder all the files that are in that folder. If you want to refresh it, just copy the file, refresh everything, and it works. But that said, I say, okay, now I have transactions. Now I know what I bought and what I sold. I'm missing some information. I'm missing, for example, the stock price. What was the stock price in a specific point in time? I don't know that, and he doesn't have any file for that. But this is a scenario where the web comes useful. You can simply go, that should be Bing, but no. Finance, Yahoo. You go to Yahoo Finance, open it, contains a lot of information, but he was interested in, let's say, in Apple, AAPL. And this shows information about the Apple stock, but it's a web page. If you look there, it says, hey, but we provide even historical prices. That's fine. Let's go for historical prices. I can put here different parameters for the dates and then say get prices. These are the prices over time, but this is not yet what I want. I would like to have all the prices in a single place. There is a beautiful download to spreadsheet that will download a CSV file that is fine to be shown inside a spreadsheet. But if I do that now, it means I need to refresh it every time, and this is just boring. I can do something better. I right-click, copy the link, then I go to Power Query, where are you, and say, hey, I want to load from the web, and this is the URL of the web. Click on OK. Right now, Power Query is connecting to Yahoo, reading the CSV file, and put it in there. In a few seconds, if the Wi-Fi works, we have the table containing that CSV file. With a big advantage, whenever I refresh it, it will download it again from that web page with the current price, because it's just downloading all the prices, converting it into a table. And I can play with it. I can modify data type, change values. Some are strings, some are dates. I need to convert them. So, for example, this is a number. It's already detected. Well, it's working pretty well. But my friend buys and sells a lot of stocks, not only Apple. And I need to load many of those files. And most important, if you look at this file, it's missing a very important information. What is it? The stock name is not there. So if I merge together many of these files, it will be impossible to understand how it works. I can repeat the operation for all the files and play with them and start working with all this stuff. Or I can be a smarter guy and say, okay, this is what I can do with the user interface. But is there any better way of working with Power Query if I need more power, if I need something better? And there is, of course. You can look at the apply steps here and use the user interface, or you can go to View and open the Advanced Editor. The Advanced Editor shows you the M language. M is a new language that was created ad hoc for Power Query. So this is a let statement that says this is the source, then this is a table called first row as header, which is a function working on the source. Then change type is a table that transforms the column types of first row as header, which is this one. And the last statement says the return value is change type, typically the last step. There's no time to go deep into the M language, of course, but the idea is that this is the source code of all the user interface you have seen. So you can, for example, take this code, copy everything, then you close this without saving anything. You create a blank query. A blank Power Query doesn't contain anything, but you go to View, Advanced Editor, you simply pass the source, click on Done, and because it's source code and contains everything, it repeats all the operation. So a first good idea would have been, okay, I create the transformation and then I create many queries by using copy and paste and changing the stock name. But using M, you have even better options. Let me see prices. This is containing the final version of the code. Let's go directly to View Advanced Editor. Using M, you can create something which is, in my opinion, is really, really cool. You can create functions. Get prices is a function that depends from the code and the name. So it will be called using a code and the name of the code of the stock and the name of the stock. And says the source is the CSV document, web contents, HTTP, blah, 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 blah. Then I build a string containing the code, some parameters that says from where I need to start and where I want to end. This string is built dynamically because it's a function, so it's called and use parameters. Then this function already does some operation, takes the first row as a header, then insert new column, which is the title, and then creates, as a result, inserted columns. Then I use my function calling several times, once for each stock that I want to read. ISP, MB, G, and so on, a lot of different stock names, all the ones he's interested in. So now if he wants a new stock, need only to go there, add the line, refresh, and everything is working. And then there is the remaining part of the code. This is the Etl steps that are needed to take that source table and transform it into a final table. This is pretty cool because the final result is exactly what I wanted to have, the stock name and all the values computed in the correct way. I put this, I push it inside the data model. Of course, I don't want it in the worksheet. I put that in the data model. And in the data model, I have prices. Here are all the prices which right now are outdated. They are updated a few days ago. But if I want to get new values, all I need to do is click on refresh. Clicking on refresh, of course you get an error.
By design.
Why you did this? That's prices. Sorry, refresh this connection. Where's the problem? Oh, it seems it's refreshing from here. I have no idea why. So I tell my user, don't go to the Power Pivot window, refresh it from there because there it works. There should be something wrong, I have no idea. Normally it works. What happens is that it connected to the website, loaded everything, did the Etl steps, and now if it worked, yes, we have data which is now updated at the day of today, just because it's loading data. Now, is it efficient? No. It's loading every time all the data and all the stocks from a website that contains all the prices. Do we really care about efficiency? We are users. We don't even know what making something efficient is. But you see how easy it is to build a structure by loading data from different sources, flat files, data from the web, and then everything is in Power Pivot. So you can create your data model, you can create relationships, you can create calculations, you can create whatever you want. Now, once the user starts to have all this data, he creates reports. For example, he say, hey, by year, I want to have the final asset, which is the sum of all what I bought and what I sold during that period or the time before the period. And then I build a beautiful chart containing information about how much I am gaining and how things are going, blah, blah, blah. All this stuff is done by using Power Pivot. And I guess you know what Power Pivot is. Say yes, because I'm not going to demo. If you don't know, say yes anyway. So he builds the pivot table and starts browsing data, publish everything, creates the report, and then he can create a report using Power View. So by using Power View, he starts creating a report where, for example, he puts, that's a beautiful report. When I saw it, I was about to kill him. This is the number of transactions that he does divided by hour. So you see that these guys work from 9 to 10, and then can go doing something else, because in the remaining part of the day, he doesn't have to do anything useful. That should be a beautiful work, that of trading. Not my work, but probably it's a nice one. So this is a report, and then you can use in Power View, for example, take the year, use it on tile by, and see what happened in 29, 2010, 2011, and so on. So creates the report containing all the information, and then does all of its analysis. Of course, its report is much more complex than this. This is just a simplified version that is useful to show what you can do with Power View, with these tools. Then, it's time to say, that's fine, this is Power Query. What if you want to share it with other people, or what if you want to use it on Power BI and publish on the web? If you have a subscription to Power BI, all you need to do is click on File, Save As, and you might have noticed that Excel is suggesting first all the web locations you have, and then the computer seems to be a second choice. This is, of course, their behavior. They want to sell the cloud. And I have a few connections to the cloud. I have a connection with Loader, a demo connection with SQLDay, another connection. I have no idea what's the difference between these two. And then my OneDrive, other web location. I don't want to save it on the computer. I want to save it on SharePoint online. And so I click on SQLDay Corporation, go to Document. And right now, because I have a subscription to Power BI, it is contacting SharePoint Online, and it will show me, hopefully, the folders which are on my SharePoint farm using my connection. But it's contacting the server for information. Whoa. And now we have this workbook, and we say, okay, let's call it Stock Analysis Wrocław. Correct. Takes a lot of time to learn it. Stock analysis in Wrocław. When you click on Save, you see that it is not really saving it. Here it's saying uploading to SharePoint, so it's not saving it on disk, thanks. It is really uploading all the data to SharePoint through the web. SharePoint means my Power BI area. I have a Power BI subscription, so it's my Power BI area. Now my report is there. I can close it. Don't want to save anything. Let's close this one, and let's open again Explorer. Now I connect to Power BI. So I go to Microsoft Services. I connect to my demo account. Of course, it asks for a password. And now I'm no longer using Excel. I can be somewhere else, or can be somebody else that wants to look at my report. I go to the site which are available in my subscription, and go to the team site. Going to the team site, I have all the documents that I have uploaded on my work. And I have stock analysis, which should be the one.
It's like new.
Yeah, it's new, but I don't see Oslo. Anyway, let's go to Wrocław. I call it Wrocław, didn't I? So it should be named Wrocław. I love when these things happen. But this is the same workbook. No, I probably saved somewhere else. That's not a big problem. This is the same workbook I uploaded this morning to do a test. When you upload it to Power BI, the workbook by default is not yet enabled for Power BI. You need to go here and click on Enable Power BI. If you buy only Office 365, you have limitations in the workbook side. So you can do most of the things you have seen so far, but you have a strong limitation on the file size. It cannot be larger than 10 megabytes. And 10 megabytes for a Power Pivot model is really a small value. If you want to have more than 10 megabytes, you can extend the size to 250 megabytes by using Power BI. 250 megabytes is already a good value, even because you don't normally upload files which are larger than 250 megabytes. It will be too slow for standard connections. So the file will be there. It should have been there. I have no idea what happened. And then you need to enable it for Power BI. Once you do that, if you want to look at the report, all you need to do is click on it, and inside the browser, you see that Excel is no longer open. We are not using Excel, but we are looking at the report that we built using Excel. And of course, here the Power View will be different because I used I'm using a different workbook, but I can see both the Excel workbook and the Power View report that contains the data I was playing with. And it's interactive. I can click on titles. It simply works. What I cannot do easily is change the shape. So for example, I can reduce 2013, and it is right now computing. It's important that you understand what is happening here. It's no longer Power Pivot running on my machine. This is analysis services running on the cloud, which is computing values coming from my Excel workbook that I uploaded to SharePoint. So these calculations, these numbers that you see whenever I play with the pivot table are no longer done locally, but are done on the web. How does it work? Well, Power Pivot is in reality analysis services, so the workbook contains an analysis services database, which, when I upload it to SharePoint, will be extracted and put on the analysis services servers, which are on the cloud. And then there it works. I can easily work with the pivot table. If I want more power, I need to go on this button, which is very well hidden, and I open the same workbook with Excel Online. What's the difference between using Excel Online or using only the browser? That now I can even modify the pivot table. So for example, I can remove the final asset, and I can add the value of buy in the values. And so now I'm looking at different numbers. I have the full power of the pivot table inside a web browser, working on a data model that is taking data from files which are on my PC, plus files coming from the web. And this is, in my opinion, a very nice example of self-service BI, because no professional was needed to build all this stuff, just some knowledge and some willingness of creating complex solutions. So I can play with all this stuff. I can start building a report. If I want, I can download the workbook to my side. So I can download the workbook, modify it, upload it again, and it will simply work. Everything without ever asking to anybody. A big problem exists if I start to use this kind of reports, which is data refresh. I mean, how is it possible that the cloud, a service which is there in the cloud, is able to refresh data which is on my notebook? It's not feasible at all. But they are working on it, of course. I have some slides. We spoke about M and blah, blah, blah. Power View, Power Map, I hate, so I skipped it. I want to show you what they are working on is the data management gateway. If I work with Power BI or if I work to SharePoint Online, as long as my data comes from servers which are already on the web, data refresh works just fine. So if my database is on the cloud, I can refresh workbooks in Power BI automatically because everything is in the cloud. And so I can activate the automatic or nightly refresh that refreshes all the new data. But if the data is not on the cloud, then I have the problem of creating a gateway between the cloud and my personal server. This gateway exists, and it's called the data management gateway. Right now, it's able to push on-premise data to cloud services. It doesn't work for all kind of data sources. In reality, it works only for SQL Server and Oracle. SQL Server after 25 and Oracle with these releases. But that means that if you have data in SQL Server which is on-prem, using the data management gateway, you can configure it. It's not an easy task. It requires some steps, as every time at the beginning. It's not very easy. There is no wizard, and you need to write some stupid strings and connections. But you are able to publish data from your server to the cloud. And when Power BI will refresh, what happens is that Power BI connects to the data management gateway. The data management gateway on the cloud goes to your server, and through a pipeline that you configure, it starts getting data from your server and bringing them in the cloud. It's not easy. It's not fast. It's, I would say, pretty slow, because it needs to use the web, and even if it packs data, if it compacts everything, and if it tries to be faster, it's still somewhat slow. But it's feasible, so you can refresh data from your server to the cloud. In my specific case, it would not work, because my data source are flat files, and flat files are not available through the data management gateway. But things are just starting. And so, for example, if I was to say to this guy, hey, you want to refresh, what he could do is take the flat files out of his PC and publish them on SharePoint Online. If there are files in SharePoint Online, then you can activate all the refresh without too many problems. The last thing is Q&A. I have uploaded everything to Power BI. Right now here I'm looking at the workbook. I go away from here. I go back to the sites of Power BI, and inside Power BI, the last feature they built was Q&A. Q&A is very simple. You search with Power BI Q&A. You click there, and a very simple page appears. There is a text box where I can write something. And these are just demo queries that are already prepared. I don't want to run demo queries. I prefer to use the text editor. So I say, hey, I want to have, for example, final assets. So you see that I'm just writing final assets. I'm not even saying where to search for. And it says, well, this is the amount of money you have. How does it know it? Well, it's searching for assets in all the workbooks and all the data models that are published on my Power BI, and it shows that's final asset. Thanks, but I want to see final asset by year. And then it shows different values. Say, oh, you want final assets by year? That's fine. That probably means you want to show over time how your final assets are going, if you're getting money or not getting money. And you see there, show final assets sorted by year descending. So this would have been the correct way of writing the query. And he understood from what I asked what I wanted to build. It's pretty cool, because you can say, by default it says, I will show it as a line chart, but maybe you want to show it as a map, as a card, or as a bar chart, or something else. And this list changes depending on, of course, the kind of query you run. So you say, hey, I want it as a bar chart. That's fine. It shows as a bar chart. And remember, all this is happening inside Explorer, so we are just connected to the web. No software needs to be installed on this machine. We are just connected to the other machine. There are two things you need to be aware when working with Q&A. The first thing is that it's in English. Right now it's only English. It will come in different languages, but it will take time. If you want to imagine what might happen in the near future, well, I guess it's not hard to understand that Microsoft is building Cortana, the assistant that is able to listen to your voice and give advices and tell you where to go to eat tonight. But it's building Cortana on one side and it's building a Q&A on the other side. It's very easy to understand that it can be matched very easily up to a point that you will talk to your phone and say, hey, show me on that PC that chart, and you probably will see the chart on the PC just because all the connection will simply work. And that's pretty cool, looks very futuristic as an idea. But in order to make Q&A work, you need to define the data model in the correct way. It's not just a data model that you throw there and works. There are a lot of small details that you need to worry about. And for example, one of the things you need to be careful about are synonyms. When I designed this data model, you go to Manage in the Power Pivot window, and you reach a place which is no longer so user-friendly, which is the area of synonyms. It's not that it is not user-friendly. Users need to understand what it does mean. So for example, I say, hey, I have a table called stocks, and if the user writes stock, that's good. I have a calculation which is last value altogether, but if the user asks for last space value, then this is fine. Answer, this is the name that I want to use for that calculation. So what you need to do is define for each measure, each table, each column, each whatever is in your model, synonyms for the various entities. In this way, it will be easier for Q&A to understand the query of the user and translate it into something which is useful. And then keep in mind that you need to even to design the site in the correct way, because if many workbooks exist that all contain the same kind of stuff, then it will be hard for Q&A to understand where to grab the value and what you are doing. There are features to restrict it, to add only certain workbook to Q&A, or to restrict the query only to a specific area of what you are searching for, but of course there is a bit of design that needs to be made. A well-designed data model with Q&A really produces astounding results. The bad model in Q&A simply doesn't work. It's embarrassing because you write queries and you don't get any useful result. So as BI professional, we need to learn it, understand it, and I help users building the data model for Q&A in the easy way. Remember, our goal is that of stopping designing reports. So all this stuff is useful because we don't need to build all the reports. We give everything to the user. So Q&A is natural language query. You simply write a sentence and you get the result. Looks like magic, but it works. And it works every day. It works a bit better. I saw it I think 1 or 1.5 years ago, and it was really rough. Now it starts to answer queries in a decent way, and you can expect it to improve. All this is available if you buy Office 365 and the cloud offer. On-prem, meaning in Excel, all this stuff is simply not available. So if you are dreaming, as I was, about having Q&A on my PC, to be able to run queries inside Excel, you can expect it to happen, but not in the near future. Because the idea of Microsoft is cloud first, on-prem later. So everything will be on the cloud first, and then at some point in the future, we have no idea when, we have the same feature on the on-prem. With natural language query, by the way, one thing that we have not seen is that you can create reports, but the shape of the report, the content of the report, whether it is a Power View report or a simple chart or a table, it's all defined by Power View. You don't need to worry about all this stuff. So if you plan to use Q&A, remember you need to use synonyms. If you have any objects which is hidden, it will be ignored. So you need to design the model in such a way that only useful things appear. Normalizing is fine, and relationships are meaningful. So you need to define relationships in the correct way, because, for example, when you say, I want the stock name, it will try to search for other tables which are near the stock table, because it follows relationship, and the next words will have more meaning if they are near to the table from which I start. There are limitations. Excel published on Power BI as of today cannot connect to analysis services, and all the data need to be in the Power Pivot data. You cannot connect to data in other Power Pivot or workbooks like workbooks in SharePoint. You need to load the data in the Power Pivot model and then work from there. Power Query as of today does not refresh data in the cloud, so Power Query works only locally but does not work on the cloud. This is probably the first limitation that they will remove, just because Power Query is really one of the things they are working harder on. And so I expect Power Query to be probably the first thing that will start to be refreshed in an easier way. So the idea of self-service BI in the mind of Microsoft is if you want to build self-service BI, just use all the Power tools. Start doing the ETL with Power Query, then build a data model using Power Pivot, build all your calculations using Power Pivot, write DAX code, write the computation, and then when it comes to presentation, use Excel or Power View locally, or publish it on SharePoint online and use a web browser to browse with Excel, Power View, and the tools which are available. If you want to do data discovery, so you have no idea about a report or the content of a database and you want just to browse and understand how it works, you have Q&A that is aimed to the CEO. I mean, somebody who is not even able to use Excel to create a report, just write a natural query and get some useful report. Whoa. If you have any other, there are of course a lot more things that we could say about the Power BI stuff. I try to show something more real world and more useful. Then I had to skip, of course, a lot of things, but it was otherwise it would only have been a demo where you say, whoa, that is beautiful, but you couldn't see something which is real world, something that you can use tomorrow morning. If you have any question, as usual, I'm here. I will be here for, I guess, half an hour, then I have to run away because the flight is leaving. So if you have any question and you want to have an answer, just stop me now. And thank you for attending.